Happens when mitosis goes wrong? What happens when meiosis goes wrong? Well, when meiosis goes wrong, it's usually because of something called non-disjunction, which is when either the homologous pairs do not separate correctly in meiosis 1, or the sister chromatids do not separate correctly in meiosis 2. So here's a picture of non-disjunction happening in meiosis 1. So remember, one of each chromosome in a homologous pair are supposed to go to daughter cells. But what if the homologous pairs don't separate during anaphase of meiosis 1? What happens? So now you can see this diagram from your textbook shows what happens. So the cell's going to divide in half here. So now this cell has too many. It has of this larger chromosome. It has one small chromosome and 2 large chromosomes. And this one has none of the large chromosome. It's missing a whole bunch of genetic information, but it just has the smaller chromosome. So remember in meiosis 2, you separate the sister chromatids. So this is what happens to the sex cells. These sex cells you're supposed to have one of each chromosome in each sex cell. This sex cell has 2 of this chromosome, and these sex cells have none of that larger chromosome. So if one of these sex cells gets fertilized, it's going to cause problems in the offspring. So it depends on what chromosomes this happens to. So if this sex cell were to get fertilized by a normal sex cell with a normal number, then you would have something called a trisomy, so the normal sex cell would have one small chromosome and 1 large chromosome. So when they fused, you'd have 2 small chromosomes in the zygote, just like you're supposed to, but you'd have 3 of the bigger chromosome. That's called a trisomy. Tri means 3. So it's called a trisomy. And some trisomies are not compatible with life. So it just depends on which chromosome this is happening to. So if you have too many of a chromosome, it causes genetic malformations. But there are some trisomies that are compatible with life, but they do cause health problems. So for example, Down syndrome is a common trisomy that is compatible with life. So people can live many years with Down syndrome. If you're missing all the genetic information from a chromosome, that's not compatible with life. So if this sex cell got fertilized, it wouldn't be able to develop properly into an offspring. So only trisomies are potentially compatible with life. So what if meiosis 1 happens normally, but the sister chromatids don't separate correctly? So here, normal meiosis 1, each of these homologous pairs gets correctly separated. But then what if in anaphase of meiosis 2, these sister chromatids didn't get separated correctly? Well, here you have some normal sex cells here because, so these homologous pairs got separated correctly, and so meiosis 1 happened correctly. Meiosis 2 happened correctly over here, but for this daughter cell, meiosis 2 did not happen correctly. You have a non-disjunction here. So again, you have this lineage has not enough, it's missing chromosomes for this sex cell and too many chromosomes in this sex cell. So if this sex cell were fertilized, that's not compatible with life, not a viable offspring. If this sex cell got fertilized, it just depends on which chromosome had too many copies. So certain chromosomes that's compatible with life, like trisomy 18, which causes Down syndrome. So some trisomies are compatible with life, but they always cause health problems. All right, you can learn about karyotypes from your book. So that's when meiosis goes wrong.